I spent the last 2 years in Shantou University, which some of you know in the old days there was a thing called re-education through labor. Well, for me, it was re-education through teaching. I was teaching, but really I was learning, and my students, of course, were my teachers, and they were the millennials, right? They're the people that we're talking about today, a little bit younger. I learned so much about them because people ask me, how do you teach journalism in China? It seems like it's impossible. So really what I've been doing is learning about how journalism is practiced and taught in China. And so I've had this two-year really re-education process. And so I would just share some of my stories because I haven't done the studies, I don't have the data, and I feel like I can offer you is sort of like a case study of something that's really, really hard to do. Because as I was sharing with my table, I wish all I had to do was sell something to the millennials. It's really easy to go shopping, but it's much harder to share ideas and sell an idea. And the media business is one of those really, really difficult things to tackle. And I have one of the hardest jobs in China right now. So to share, first of all, I want to share a little bit about being a teacher. The two things that that I noticed. Well, on the outside, I would say, there's this generation, the young people that I teach today, has so much more in common with the Americans, the Westerners, and actually the people in the data that Dr. Albright just mentioned, right? When she was showing those statistics, I thought you were talking about Chinese kids today. Right? The whole thing about if you didn't share it, it didn't happen, that's exactly how it is in China. Two, if you ate something and you didn't share, you didn't eat it. Right? If you heard a song, you didn't share it, you didn't hear it. And you didn't exercise if you didn't share. So all of that is true also here. So in so many ways, my students are just like everyone else. They're more global, they're more interconnected, they're more wealthy, they're more everything than they've ever been in previous generations. So in some ways, it's easy to teach them, right? They are a product of the millennial, the global age, information age, in technology. But really underneath, when you spend 2 years with them teaching journalism, you realize that they're very much a product of this old system, especially when you try to teach journalism. And I'll give you some examples because we live inside the wall, right? And when you teach journalism, it's a very restricted space. In a world where there's more freedom than ever. My students have watched The House of Cards before I have. They've watched 50 Shades of Grey before I have. They can teach me how to download that and watch it for free. I don't know how to do that, right? So they know more about the world, more international than ever. But, right, they can't read the New York Times, right? They can't do things that most journalists should be able to consider basic. And so, like for my students, what I learned was pretty shocking, like 2 examples of why they're a product of the system. People ask me, so why do your students want to become journalists? I mean, yes. So to me, it was like a non-question. Why wouldn't they want to become journalists? Why did they choose journalism school if they want to become journalists? And I was actually shocked by the answer. The answer is the majority of them do not want to become journalists. And then I would go back and ask them, well, why did you pick journalism school in the first place? Most of them didn't really pick it. They are in J school by default because they couldn't get a higher grade to get into another school, or they didn't know what else to do, or they had to choose when they were very young the rest of their lives. They had no idea. Or they watched someone on TV and they liked how she looked and thought, well, I'd like to be her. But being her and being a journalist is very different, right? And so they're just here suddenly in front of my class, and I'm trying to teach them the universal values of journalism, right? Truth, accuracy, and fairness, and all that. And is it true that they have no idealism? It's not true, because most of my students, and when they're young, when they come in, even though they didn't necessarily choose J school, they say, I do want to be a reporter, I do want to grow up and be, and that's the first year of J school. And especially when they hear me talk about what we can do in the US in the free media and all that, to keep government honest, etc. They love it, and they want to do that. And guess what happens after they take their first internship in a Chinese media company? they come back and say, I will never want to be a journalist, right? And some examples, right? So one girl, her job is to go help. She's an apprentice to a local reporter, right? Her job is to go and pick up the red envelope that for the journalist, the senior journalist. That's her job as an intern. And she doesn't even get a cut of it. Do you know what the red envelope? Yeah, right? So you write a story, they pay you, right? They pay you, and she doesn't get to write the story. She gets to collect the envelope. No, her supervisor doesn't even bother to go get the red envelope herself. Do you know what I mean? Like she gets the intern fetches the envelope and learns the dirty ropes of how journalism is practiced, and she gets nothing from it, right? And then another example is a student who, gets a really good scoop on something, whether it's, food safety issue or there's some explosion on the high train track last night, and it's near us in Shantou. I always say Shantou is the North Korea of China because it's so out of the place and it's defined by what it doesn't have, no Starbucks, no Shangri-La, no nothing, right? And so it's middle of nowhere, but stuff happens in the middle of nowhere everywhere in China. And then our students have access to those stories. There was some village, lots of villagers protesting illegal land grabs and taking over government buildings. It's right next door. News is happening right next door. But can they write about it? Yeah, maybe for homework assignment. Does it see the light of day? No, right? And so these are kind of things that make them learn, okay, so they can't practice what we preach. And so they feel very, very disillusioned. And it's hard for me to watch some of my best students choose to do something else. Actually, my best student, I think he's born to be a reporter. He's so great. Like there was some student that drowned. There was a dead body that washed up in the reservoir by our school. And the first person out there, his reaction is just exactly what every good journalist should do. He races out there to figure out what the hell happened. And other people just, and what happened to him, right? I wish he would become a journalist. And what's he doing today after graduation? He's going to sell eggs. He's doing what you're doing. He's selling. It's easy to get people to shop, to buy things. Because it's not easy, actually. It's not easy. I'm really, really sorry because he's not making money. He doesn't know what he's going to do because it takes skills to sell eggs. He comes from the countryside. His family has a plot of free-range chickens. And it is true. They are thinking of healthy chicken and instead of supermarket chicken. He wants to, get on the bike and now he's selling chicken. But, it's like, why doesn't he put his brain to doing what he does best and what he loves to do? I think he loves to do, he's a natural journalist, he loves it, but he sees no way out, right? And so he thinks that, and there is more of a future selling eggs. Actually, by the way, he started out selling beef balls. I don't know what's his thing with round objects, but, beef balls in the soup is Shantou specialty, by the way, and it's a local specialty, and he completely bankrupted himself and his roommates. He was no good at selling, and now he's selling eggs. Why? I don't know. He should be a reporter. I should hire him, but he doesn't see a future. Okay, so, and meanwhile, the editors from big, we bring in Chinese editors to talk about, the future of journalism, and it is so depressing. The Chinese editors come in and say, what's been happening lately, editors are either committing suicide, jumping out of a building, or they're getting locked up in jail for taking bribes and corruption. And so, what is the message? The future is in your hands, young people of tomorrow, right? And what are the young people doing? They don't want to do this. They don't want to go and jump out of a building. That's not the future that they're looking forward to. So anyway, so that's kind of depressing. And so then why did I, if I were a good student, as I say I'm supposed to be, I'm a student trying to learn from my students, I should get out of the business and stay out of the business. And what have I done but come back to the business and come back to one of the hardest jobs there is to do in journalism in China? I don't know, it's probably because I'm a bad student or because I'm not a millennial, right? I don't know if that is the answer. I think that for my, I think that it's really important to do something this hard because it really, really matters, and that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to try something this hard, this moment in Chinese history. And if we can have any breakthrough, it would be something that I would feel really proud of. So I believe in the old-fashioned, hope and hard work and, and making a difference. And maybe that's really like the last millennial. It's so old-fashioned that we don't talk about that anymore. Because my students are so smart. They teach me things, but they don't really want to do this because it's hard, and I need them because, it's nice for me to say I believe in hope and making a difference, but I can't do this alone. This is not a job for us old people, it's for them to do. And I have now a tiny army of millennials helping me run the Chinese New York Times. And, I'll share a couple more stories. I saw data that was similar to what Dr. Albright was showing and similar to what Harry was showing about, the single most, I would say the single most difference between this generation and the past in terms of media, of course, is the phone, right? It's the internet, but not the internet even. It's the mobile phone and how you're consuming information on that, and that everything happens on the phone, and news is consumed through the phone. But the problem is, what do they do on the phone? They go shopping. They buy, diapers or whatever you were saying that they buy, or they go, and I saw there was a figure, you said 80% news is done on a figure that I just read through WeChat. Of course, all the information comes through WeChat. I learned through WeChat, and my students posting it, and there was a study that was done about the most popular topics on WeChat that people click through to. So guess what percentage is news? What percentage of the clicks are news, right? 4%. And what about the rest? Entertainment, love, relationship, all the things you guys are talking about. 'Cause I'm the least popular of all. If you put this topic on the internet right now, you guys will get all the clicks. The love, the relationship, the dating, the shopping, the everything. And news, 4%. And yet, right, this is what I do. This is my bread and butter. And you guys, when you say, I have the young people who know everything about the internet, they know everything, they should be able to help me. But when we're blocked, right, the thing is, all the hard work that we do, for the young people, if they ate something and they didn't share it, it's like they didn't eat it. If they exercise and they didn't share, it's like they didn't exercise. What do you think about if, they worked at the New York Times, worked on a story, translated a story, produced a story, and it's a really great story, and nobody sees it? So to them, they didn't do it. They didn't have this job. This job that they came in, it's just exactly like my students who come into journalism school really proud that they are doing this, and they're looking forward. And the people actually love to come and work for us. And I send out a free intern request, and I get like 100 applications. But once they come in and see that, well, you mean I don't get to share this? You mean my friends don't get to see that I did this? So why should I even do this? I get something else, go to Bloomberg, they pay 3 times as much or whatever, and I get to be seen. And so I can't compete against, in the world of social media where, the currency is the ability to share and the ability to win likes. I can't win that war, but I have to stand my ground, and I need their help. And so, I do believe there's, I don't know where else I would go with this message. I think is just that this generation is different. Each generation obviously is different from Harry's great historical look. My boss at the J School who brought me there, I take a giant pay cut in lifestyle, dip from living in Laojingjiang, where I used to live in Shanghai, to Shantou, where no Starbucks, no nothing, right? And because on an idea that I'm doing something so important, I get to shape the minds of young people, and I get to change, journalism as it is practiced in China. Like me single-handedly get to change. He made a spiel like that. I bought it, right? Because I'm stupid or I'm not a millennial, whatever it is. But someone like him, for him, it is so hard. What we do is so hard. What I did with him at the journalism school, I thought was really hard. But he believes. It doesn't faze him because he's another generation, where he spent, he lost a decade of his life during the Cultural Revolution and doing nothing for 10 years. And he's fine with that because he escaped there was a death sentence that he wrote something to somebody that was, what's the word? Somebody else reported on him, and he got a death sentence. And then somebody helped him escape. So he got a second life out of that terrible thing. And so for him, being able to teach journalism in today's China and to teach the things that we teach, it's already a huge progress. And it's not a hard thing at all. But for me, it is, right? Because you can't write everything. And then, so each generation is different. I think that this is important for us to stand our ground. We can make breakthroughs. We still have an audience. So if you all read Chinese, please support us at cnnytimes.com. It is very important if you read Chinese to come and be a supporter, because most of you probably have VPN, so you can read us. But I'm confident that the government down the line, or soon, will believe that it makes no sense to block us for an eternity. It's been 2 years, and we get it, and they get it. But I think ultimately, we just need I think China's ready for different voices in the media, and they're ready to hear criticisms because they're powerful enough, and that we welcome their counter-criticism of our coverage. It's not perfect, but you can't criticize us if you can't read us. People don't know, what we're saying, then you can't criticize us. So anyway, I don't know what else that I can add to. But I'm trying really hard, and thanks to the millennials, I believe, we will continue to stay here and stand our ground and do the journalism that we're meant to do. So thank you so much.